I wrote this piece of fiction using ChatGPT. It's the first piece of fiction I've ever written, and I want to walk you through how I did it. So let's jump over here. Looking at the piece, it's basically a 6,500 word essay. And I'm actually pretty proud of it. It took a lot of writing on my part, but I would not have been able to write it without the help of ChatGPT. So I will take you to the beginning. This is my ChatGPT prompt. And at the beginning, I said, write a 10,000 word short story based on pathless path themes. I had used a custom GPT loaded on my book, The Pathless Path, just to go for style and different sort of themes I want to focus on. I gave it a bunch of instructions and it ended up giving me a bunch of stuff. I actually created this whole scene. It outlined 10 different chapters based on a tech environment. And so I started taking these and re-editing it and rewriting it. And the first challenge I faced was I never worked in big tech. So I was sort of trying to write an experience I hadn't had and didn't really know that well. And so I found myself making up a lot of stuff. So that was my first aha. The next thing I did, here's a bunch of my prompts. Then I started asking it, okay, what is a short story? What does it actually look like? And then it told me a structure of a short story. So I actually took these 5 things here and I started prompting it. I said, okay, given these 5 prompts, I outlined something I was actually more familiar with. So I'm more familiar with the world of like banking and consulting and New York and all that. So I said, okay, here are the 5 parts, characters. These are the 5 steps. Let's write a story. And then it started writing, right? So I had these 5 parts it outlined for me. And I said, okay, outlining these 5 steps, I added more detail. And then it started outlining, right? And so it now had this character Emma, which I had prompted it, I had told it to do. And I had these 5 parts. This was not the arc of the story I ended up using, but here's how I did it. I rewrote that first part. And I said, okay, just this first part, write out a draft of the introduction. And then it started writing. And like, it was not great, especially given my personal experience in this environment. It didn't get a lot of things right and it didn't match my writing style. So basically what I did from there is I copied this into Google Docs, rewrote it. And as I'm rewriting, I'm noticing, okay, those are the things I might want to change in the story arc. Here are the things I'm thinking of in the future. And the most powerful thing about this was in the midst of it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm writing fiction. And I had been blocked on fiction for so long. I'm like, I can't do that. I can't create a world. So what this did for me is basically create a world in the form of a crappy first draft. And the fact that it was crappy helped me because I'm looking at things, right? And I didn't love them. Like here, amidst the sea of adulation, it's like, oh, so wordy. And it's a bit over the top and like very embellished with language, not my style. So by me getting angry at the draft, I'm able to then, okay, here's how I want it to write. I can prompt it. And so what I did for basically a few days, and I probably wrote and rewrote probably 6 to 7 hours. What I did was say, okay, now give me the second section. I'm going to add context to that initial proposed draft. I rewrote that. And then what I kept doing is taking the rewritten sections and dumping it back in. Here's a part where I said, okay, I don't really love this phrase. How could you rewrite it? And then I would just use the different ways of framing things to come up with even more ideas. So I said, continue writing this, rewrite this. And so I loved how it was able to just give me rewritten sections. And then here, what I did is, okay, so I rewrote the first two sections, I pasted below. Update the 3 final parts. So from there, all I did was take the third part. I said, okay, add this context. I'm going to make this change with the character and write out a draft of the third part. I would then go rewrite the whole section. And then, given the added information, I would rewrite the first and second parts. And then I would take the first 3 parts and say, okay, now update the fourth and fifth parts, right? And so I knew it was a 5-part structure. And I just kept doing that back and forth and back and forth. And yeah, it was a pretty cool experience. It's actually pretty good. I was surprised at how good it was. Yeah, and I added some images at the end. But that is the piece. I'll link it up if you want to read it. It's about a young woman in a corporate context who takes a trip and starts reimagining the possibilities of her life with a surprise ending. You'll see how it ends. If you have questions about how to do this for your own, drop the questions below and I'm happy to answer.